As some of you already know, Pernilla and I are in the process of moving, and it's a big move. Um, I've lived in the house that we're in my entire life. It's my childhood home, and we're looking to move to a different continent. We're moving to Spain, and in a move like that, it's inevitable to have to encounter certain aspects of our narrative history. Those parts of us that we have developed into being, part of our whole story, the way that we define ourselves, the way that we put ourselves into this narrative structure with everybody else that we've ever met and all of the family that's come and gone and all of those things. And it's easy when we're doing a lot of this work to kind of put ourselves into a state where it feels, detached from the goings-on of life. And even to where we see through the reality, the seeming reality, and the seeming, permanence of our story and the way that we believed it to be. So when you are doing a move like this and you're encountering stuff from your childhood, drawings that you drew when you were 5 or something, it's a very weird feeling because on one hand that none of that is real. I mean, obviously the drawing is real, but that, the one who's sitting here right now did not actually draw that. But the mind creates these connections between that image that I supposedly drew and a connection to that being, little Todd. Like that's still there somehow in some way. And it's a really, it sets us into a kind of peculiar position because we really become face to face with that recognition that everything both is and isn't at the same time. That there is one level of reality where, some of these neurons probably were there originally when that drawing first got drawn by those, very tiny hands. But the cells themselves that have made up those hands are no longer there, right? That body has changed drastically. The DNA is basically the same, but there is so much about that being that is no longer here. And there is a truth to that, and there's also a truth that there is a continuity, that, this house is different, but still here. That the being who has lived in it that whole time is very, very different, but still there's a thread of continuity. And that's one of those things where we tend to fall into one extreme or the other when we're on this path. And it's helpful to recognize that there is that middle way between them, where things both are and are not. Early on in the path, we do a lot with negating the self because we're seeing through all of those illusions of the what's perceived to be the absolute reality of what I believe I am and my story and all of that. After a while, though, we can run the risk of going too far down the path of deconstruction, and then it actually helps to bring back in some of that grounding, some of the grounding of the quasi-reality, where, yes, but it feels real, and people seem to be real and remember me from when I was a child, and, we have this shared history. And so bringing balance into it, I think, is a really healthy thing, especially later in the path, because people can fall down rabbit holes of nihilism and depersonalization and derealization and deconstruction to the point where it actually becomes somewhat pathological. But something else that this has brought up is we have a lot of papers in the house, a lot of old legal paperwork or like healthcare bills, things like that. And as some of you know, I had a lot of years where I took care of my mother. She had a lot of health problems, and I have a lot of filing cabinets filled with all of the paperwork that we had to save back in those days in case you had to prove something. So now is the time to clear all of that out. And it really struck me because we have too much to shred. I mean, it's not going to happen. So we have a little bonfire thing and just started kind of burning it and letting it go, which in itself is a wonderfully cathartic process to do. But what was really fascinating about it is it really reminded me in an instant how all of those things that we hold on to can just vanish and be completely gone. I mean, that paper that was there that had, all these memories about difficulties that she had had in her health, struggles fighting with doctors, very expensive doctor bills and hospital stays and all of those things, which kind of weigh us down. They are part of the burden of humanity, that as we're going through our lives, we're never really divesting all of those past experiences. They kind of linger and hang. And when you put them into a fire pit and you touch a match to it, within a matter of minutes, it is just gone, irretrievable, completely erased from existence. And that is the thing that our mind doesn't do. In the instant when you watch it go up, it reminds you that it is possible, that we can, in a way, resolve to letting it go and to detach from it and to just let it burn up and dissolve. But it doesn't, we also have to recognize that the subconscious level at which things hold on are not under our conscious control. So I can have the resolve that I am going to touch a match to the paper and it's going to be gone. And whatever I have thought about that moment is going to be gone along with it. But the fact is, I have no control over what's in the subconscious of my mind, because that is what is running the show. So we have to also be compassionate with ourselves, that we don't expect too much and push ourselves to saying, well, you should be able to be beyond this thing. This trauma should be gone. You should have to, just let it go. That is not entirely under your conscious control. If it was, we would all be very different beings. So it's nice to have those moments that remind us that, in theory, we absolutely can be present and free and alive and fresh and revived right here, right in this moment. And that's something that we are all aspiring to. But also be kind and recognize that this is not a conscious willed effort. This is not something that you just do. It's something that over time can unwind, and you can do all sorts of practices and therapies and body work and different things which will help to unwind some of that subconscious complication and retention of these past wounds. But you can't force yourself into it. You can't just will it to happen, because will is itself a byproduct of this subconscious mechanism. So I was inspired to make a little video when I saw that, because I thought it's such a good illustration of what we would like to happen compared to what actually happens in most of our lived experience. And I hear a lot of people being very hard on themselves, and the whole quest for awakening and all of that is so bound up with tons and tons of doing and feeling like you should be able to, or that you should do differently, or that you're not getting where you should be fast enough. And I think we need a lot more compassion in this work and recognition that it is not you who is doing it, right? If it was, you would be trying to get rid of the thing which is doing the work. There is no thing to begin with, not really. And so the work is just going to happen on its own. And recognize that all of that which makes up the experience of you, whatever that is in this moment, is not under your willful control. It's just there. It's observing itself, right? I was going to say just watch it, but you can't even watch it. It is watching itself. Every happening is happening on its own. That's the whole point. When we give suggestions like become aware of, it's more talking to your subconscious than it is to the conscious mind. Because the conscious mind can't just become aware of something. It doesn't have that power. It doesn't have that capacity. It has to be generated by something else below it. It's a very complicated mechanism that creates this human body and this interaction with everything else around us. Being mindful of that, just start to see in your life the places where those past injuries, the past wounds, the past traumas, things that you either would rather not let go of or just feel like you can't let go of. Imagine for a moment that you have touched a match to them, just like they're a piece of old paper. And just for a moment, feel the relief in having it completely gone from existence. You cannot get it back. You cannot reconstitute a piece of paper out of ash. What was there a moment before the fire is literally completely gone and irretrievable. See if you can use that as a mental exercise. Bring to mind something that, an instant that weighs on you, that you keep reliving over and over, and have a moment where you picture it going up in flames and are gone. It might not be the last time that you ever think of it, but feel that relief of knowing that it is possible in one way for it just to be, for there to be a world where it doesn't exist. Because in reality right now, whatever happened in the past does not exist anymore. Right? The papers that were burned are just an artifact that have no actual connection to the reality of whatever happened then, because none of it is happening now. But the paper is a symbolic artifact, and in burning it, it gives you that reminder that the past is gone and can't return. And the same thing with wounds of, traumatic past instances and that sort of thing. When you imagine that they are gone in a quick burst of flame, it puts you back where you are right now, where none of that actually actively exists. With time, as you do this, the hope is that subconsciously you will start to unwind it. You will have less and less interaction with that. Mentally, you will, chew on it less and less. The mind will dredge it up less and less. You will be less likely to make associations to it when you're out in your life, doing other things, and you see some relatively unrelated instant that gives you a flashback of whatever that is. We want to unwind it by recognizing that in this moment, it is like a piece of ash. That paper cannot come back again. It cannot be reformulated out of this moment that's here. You can only have memories about it. And some of those memories can stimulate sensations in the body that feel like the past has returned, but they haven't really. Always look around you and recognize how different this moment is than whatever it was that you've just gotten lost in the grips of in some sort of a traumatic past memory. And first and foremost, remember that we need compassion at every stage of this practice. We want compassion for ourselves, for the biological entity, for those around us, for those who are walking the path and for those who aren't. Because we're all in this together, and none of us are who we think we are or what we think we are. And it's all way more complicated than any easily remembered slogan that you don't exist, or that you do exist, or the self isn't real, or that the self is the only thing that's real. All of those are just mind-made nonsense. What is here is ungraspably complicated. It's beyond our capacity to understand. So we're just trying to help each other out, support each other through this very strange experience of being alive as a human, and seeing where it all unfolds. I hope that helps. I hope you can try to put that into practice. Having even an instant of recognition that everything is like a burning flame, a burning piece of paper that is just here one moment and gone the next, reminds us how we can interact with life in a different way. It changes our perspective. It takes a lot of that density and the seeming weight and importance and heaviness out of life, because we feel like it's really dire when it's about me, when it's all tying into my personal narrative story, because we all want, we grow up with stories and with movies that teach us that, the protagonist is the most important person in their world, and they have to have a happy ending. In other cultures, that's maybe not quite as prevalent, but for those who have grown up in the US in particular, it's like we really get tied into that idea of there has to be some sort of a happy ending at the end of the story. And we feel that narrative arc being drawn through from the very beginning all the way up to our deathbed, whenever that happens. So taking a moment to remember this moment in one way is connected to every moment that has ever come before it, all the way to the very beginning of the universe and beyond. But in another way, this is a completely unique experience, existing in a little timeless bubble of its own. And that timeless bubble is going to pop. It's going to be replaced by a new timeless bubble, but that one is also going to pop. So whether it's a burning piece of paper or a popping bubble, what is here is only here for this fleeting instant, and then it's gone. And the only thing which will drag that bubble or drag that piece of paper through time is the memory, is the mind, the human capacity for tying together moments into something meaningful to me. Be aware as it's happening. And again, it's not that it's bad that it happens, but become aware of it and recognize that it's only half true. Everything is only ever half true. Just because you can picture the passage of time and you can remember specific instances of your childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and so on, doesn't mean that they are all here. It doesn't mean that they are the way that you experience them. It doesn't mean that it was the linear flow that you thought it was. It doesn't mean that it even existed as your memory currently says that it does. All it means is that you have this capacity for imagination and for remembering or recreating images of things that the brain has taken in the past. That's it. Every moment that we're in is the only moment that we can experience. And every time you have a memory or a flashback about something that happened in the past, recognize that it's happening now, but also that it's just the mind doing this trick that it does. It has brought something into the future, into the present, from the past that is no longer here. And all you need to do is to touch a match to it or pop the bubble with a pin. And you are right back to this little moment here now. This little individual unique slice of time is here. Everything else can just poof into a whiff of smoke and then it's gone. Because it's always the only way that it happens. Each moment is burning. The Buddha said that we're basically on fire. Everything is constantly burning. Every moment is burning up and becoming something new. We are in a constant state of renewal and change and process. And we don't need to deny any of that. We don't need to deny the continuity of it. We don't need to deny the individuality of it. Both are and both are not. I wish you well on your path, on your journey, on this experience. Let me know how this works for you, if it helps to imagine things from any time that's not now as a piece of paper going up in smoke or a bubble popping with a pin, and then just be back here. Thank you so much. Enjoy.